Hey, y'all, I am so excited about this call. I think sometimes it's more fun to not know what's coming. Jamie and I have just like lightly talked about it. So I actually think that's better. I'm going to get it started here in just a minute. But if you see someone, or if you don't see someone that you know wanted to jump on here, or that you think has, Monday at noon free, send them a message in the link real fast so they can jump on. I think most people jump on like right at like noon 03, but that's kind of what happens. I'm gonna get my notes ready. Jamie, where are you? What city are you in?
I'm in Cadillac, Michigan. So northern Michigan. So we have lots of snow right now. Yep.
So when we complain about 28 degrees, you're like, a warm winter day.
Yeah. If we get into like the 40s or even high 30s, but 40s, it's like, oh, it's like sweatshirt weather, you don't need to bring a coat. You can just hop out. So,
what is it actually there right now?
That's a good question. Let me see what oh no. For a second, it took a second to catch up. It says 12 degrees right now on my phone.
That's insane. I wouldn't make it. Christy lives in Florida. She'd make it really to just not survive.
It looks like in the weekend, we're going to get like at night down to like a -2. So that'll be a little colder.
Do you actually leave? When we were talking about this last night, my husband grew up in like Iowa and Minnesota. He grew up like right outside Minneapolis. And he said one time he remembers it getting below a certain degree for school, and they canceled school because it like wasn't safe for people to be like, for anyone to be outside. So does that happen around there? Like they actually like shut down like stores and stuff just for temperature reasons?
Not often. We've had it happen before when it got too cold but normally it's because of roads that get shut down or something. And that takes quite a bit. I mean, we drive in snowy, icy roads all the time. So when it gets bad though, we'll shut down school.
Well, just stay tuned to your TV, because when you see Texas shut down this week for a 1/4 inch of ice on all the roads, just know it's because we have no way to actually protect them.
Yeah.
And we drive in them for like, 36 hours every year, and that's it. So we really just stay. Schools are already, after school stuff is already canceled, and it's 30 degrees and it's not even a flurry in the sky yet. So
when you don't have like the salt trucks or when they're pouring dirt or salt to get the roads, yeah, it'd be terrible. You can't function. So totally get it.
Yeah, snow tires or any of that stuff. Like people are speeding around in their sports cars and having a grand old time here in Texas. Okay, we'll get started. I am so excited. I actually asked Jamie to come talk for a few reasons. One of them is, so this Monday Masterclass, what we're doing every single Monday, we've done it for a few months now, is we're hearing from top leaders in the company. And what I think is important for y'all to hear is their stories on how they got in, because I think so often what we hear is the easy of being diamond, which looks phenomenal, but where you are right now at silver and senior silver and gold and senior gold, not feeling like it's moving that direction. I want you to hear other people's stories, and also will probably identify someone in your network who is like, oh, okay, yes, I really do need to talk to that girl because she has a similar story. Two, I think it's good to just hear stories we don't hear all the time. I say Jamie's quieter. Probably doesn't need to be in the spotlight in front of everyone, or if she does like it, we just haven't gotten to see that much of her yet. So I'm excited about that. I'm hoping if she wants to, I'll put a word in to get her in the spotlight. I think it's fun to hear from new people. But also Jamie's on the leaderboard consistently, but also is a 3-star diamond, which means she's holding at least 3 jewel legs, separate legs. So she's developed at least 3 different jewel legs from her personal diamond account. And to me, that shows leadership development. And it shows someone who is interested in continuing to develop new leaders, not just gain 3 new customers for a pair of boots. So although both things are important, I think the longevity of what we do is really geared towards leadership. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let Jamie tell her story. I'm going to let her tell you maybe some pitfalls and things that she's kind of seen along the way so that you can learn from her mistakes. And then we're going to hear some tips from her, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. So hold some questions, write them down so that you have something immediately ready as soon as we ask for Q&A. So there's not that big lag of quiet. And if you have the ability and you are not naked, please turn your screen on, because it is so much easier to talk when there is a screen full of people's faces as opposed to blank screens and names and all of that stuff. So if you have the ability to turn your video on, it is so much easier for speakers when they can see your faces. So just want to encourage you with that, and we will get to sit back and hear from Jaime.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Andrea. It's an honor to be asked to talk to you guys, and just thank you for having me here. And yes, videos are great. So it's great seeing your guys' faces. So a little bit about me, and just I'll share my story. I'm going to share a few tips that go along with my story, and challenges for you guys with that too. So if you have something to write with, or your phone to put in the note section of your phone, I am going to give some specific action step challenges for you guys throughout this as well. So a little bit about me. I'm a wife to 3 kiddos. My husband is in the Army. He flies Blackhawks. He's also a game warden. So he does the Army thing part-time. And we live in, as you may have heard if you were on the call earlier, Northern Michigan. So lots of snow here. When I started Plexus, we had just gotten back from Fort Rucker, Alabama. We were there for 1 year for my husband to go through flight school. And that's how I met Tiffany Wilson, who's my sponsor. And it was when I got back that I started seeing her post about Plexus. And at the time we had 2 little kids. We were transitioning from, to find a new home. We were living with my parents, trying to get things settled. And I was honestly just looking for a good quality probiotic, good quality multivitamin. My mom had just gotten a health issue diagnosed, and my grandma had the same one. And I figured I should take care of myself now instead of waiting for said health issue to come around, right? Waiting for something to happen. So I'm a firm believer that everyone could benefit from these products, whether you have big things that you're looking for or not, because I started looking for 0 results. It was literally for preventative health. So anyone can benefit from these products, right? So I started for that reason. I knew things on shelves were filled with additives and junk. So I saw Tiffany start posting, thought, great. Actually, before I started seeing these testimonies. And I remember sitting my parents down. Actually, I think they were in their living room to be exact. And I made them pause the TV and I read these testimonies out loud to them, because I thought, if this reminds me of my mom, this reminds me of my dad, if it could help these people, why not them? And at that point, I knew literally nothing about the products. I had not even decided to fully start myself, to be honest. I was like just passing along what I was seeing. So got them interested. I was like, hold the phone. I need to sign up myself. I want to start these products. And I started with the idea of sharing with a few people would be great, because this is an added thing to our budget that we normally were not budgeting. And we were kind of in a tight spot financially. So I'm like, okay, if I can, Tiffany told me I could share with a few friends, help cover cost of products. That sounded fantastic. Started sharing, but what was really timely, thank God for the timing of all of this, because shortly after I started, we were crunching numbers and my husband was like, it's not adding up. We're looking to buy a home and we're not going to afford a mortgage. You're going to have to go back to work. And as I said, I had 2 kids at the time. We now have 3. And it's, some people love to work being moms, and I am so glad for them. But for me, as far back as I can remember, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. I was looking forward to be a stay-at-home mom, and to have that option completely ripped from me and to not even have the choice to be home with my kids was beyond devastating. I cried. I was upset. I was like, not letting it be a reality. I was like, there's got to be something else, right? And I had just started these products, of course, and started sharing. And I remember telling him, give me a few months. I think I can make enough to stay home. So thankfully, that was the case. I ended up staying home with my kids, making that part-time, then full-time. And then 1 year into my journey, I hit Emerald. And that was a huge thing for me. That was a whole turning point of bigger vision and dreaming bigger. Thinking of this being something. I mean, I worked social work before this. Before I had kids, I was not planning on making a lot of money as a social worker, but this allowed for a much bigger vision that unfolded through that. So that's what I want to bring about for my first big tip. I want to talk to you guys about vision and belief, because one huge turning point for me was very shortly after I started. I got on a phone call with Tiffany Wilson and Fallon black at the time, braid now. And I had just started sharing, and it was a huge turning point for me. That was kind of like this vision belief call. And they wanted to know, how much money do you want to make? I remember saying, oh, like $300 a month would be huge. And Fallon literally laughed at me and said, oh, honey, you're going to make much more than that. And she said something that I will never forget. She was, and this is important because she was only a gold, I believe, at the time, and she had just ranked senior gold, I think, that month, and Tiffany was a silver. So they are the first couple ranks of the company. And she told me, listen, these are products that people need. This is a company that has integrity, a compensation plan that is unique. We are learning from diamonds, and we are going to the top. You can come with us if you want. And the way they spoke, it didn't matter. I don't even know if I knew what rank they were at the time. I mean, I'm sure I probably did. I just started sharing, but it didn't matter where they were. It didn't matter their history. It didn't matter what was going on. They spoke with such conviction and belief. I knew that they were going to the top. That wasn't even a question. I'm like, okay, well, they're going to be diamonds. So now it's if I want to go with them. And they said I can go too. So I remember thinking in that moment, okay, if I do what they do, why can't I go too? Why couldn't I be a diamond as well? So that was huge for my belief and my vision in that moment, because I did not have a lot of belief in myself. It didn't change the fact that I was unsure about myself, about how this was going to happen, but they had that confidence and they had that belief. So you guys have the ability to show someone what is possible with this. You have the ability to cast that belief and vision to the people you talk to and show them what is possible, to know where you are going and to invite people along with you. So I am a firm believer in letting everybody know about not only the products, but the business side of things, but not only just the business and earning some boots, which is great, but the opportunity and how big this opportunity could be. If they don't want how big it is, that's okay. They could earn some boots. They could, refer a few friends. That's great. But you have to at least tell them how big this opportunity really is, how life-changing it really could be, that they could think big picture with their finances, with another stream of income, with replacing an income, right? For us, it created a huge, not only was able to stay home, but I was able to cover Christian education for our kids, which was a massive financial burden at the time. My husband and I were kind of in an argument over it on and off again. I looked at it as electricity bill, like this is just going to have to happen. We'll figure it out. And he looked at it as, well, if we have the money, then we can send him to Christian education. So it's kind of a source of tension for us. So it took that completely out of the picture for us, which is a big deal. Anyway, so you guys have that ability. And even though that didn't necessarily change how I felt about myself in the moment, I was able to grasp that belief, grasp that vision from them and know where we were going, right? It was a choice. The skills can be learned, but it's a choice to step forward through that. And it will not all go perfectly, but if you have the resolve to succeed, you will figure it out and you'll learn through all the unknowns, through all the hards, instead of giving up. That is what belief and vision can do for you and your people. It's a catalyst to your success story, to your diamond story, your diamond journey, right? And then your step after that is that you can and you must instill that in other people. If you want to build a business that is going to stand the test of time, that is going to have a solid foundation, you need to pass that belief and vision along to other people. So my challenge for that tip is to get on the phone with someone. So if you don't have that full belief for yourself yet, borrow that from me, borrow that from your upline, from Andrea, get that, talk to your upline, get on the phone with them. But I want to challenge you to get on the phone with someone that you're working with, your downline, do a 3-way call. We do a lot of 3-way calls with our team. Your upline can help you with that, but talk that vision, talk that belief, ask those questions. 3-way calls are a great way to do that with anyone coming in, whether it's a brand new person for the products or for the business, because either way you're building that connection and you're able to hear their story, why they came in, what they're excited about, maybe what they're nervous about, any hesitancies, and you can address that right there. You can share your story. You can make a connection. You can tell them that they have a couple options with Plexus. Maybe they hadn't heard about the business side of things. You can be the one, maybe as the upline on a 3-way call, to tell them that if their sponsor had not yet. Okay, number 2, is identify your comfort zone. So starting this business, nearly everything was out of my comfort zone. And I'm not exaggerating too much because I was in a spot where, Andrew, you kind of guessed it, I was probably more quiet, right? I was in a spot where I had like 100, maybe low 200. I think it was 100 Facebook friends. I was actually about to shut down my Facebook. I hadn't, thank goodness, but I was this close to shutting down my Facebook. And I rarely posted on social media. I was a person that I would say is an unlikely leader, because you probably would never see me initiate an unnecessary conversation with a stranger. That's actually something my friend said to me, my close friend said to me later, that like this, I was the last person he thought would do network marketing because of that reason. And he said, I'd been stretched more than a pulled hamstring. And he was right, but in all the good ways, because that is what is required to grow in this business, wherever you're coming from. But for me, like, you know, it was posting on social media. And doing that first post or sending that first message, I closed my eyes and pushed send. Like, it was painful. It was very uncomfortable. It was hard, but I got better. Of course, some of you guys maybe can relate. Some others are like amazing at it. You love that platform. But just because someone does not have a big social media presence, does not have a lot of Facebook friends, doesn't post a lot, they could still be a diamond. So come in all shapes and sizes there. I did change though, of course. I had to step into those things. I had to start doing those things because you know how important that is with this business. That phone call with Tiffany and Fallon that I told you guys about, I made up my mind in that moment when they said, you can go with this if you want. One thing I didn't tell you yet is I remember saying, and I remember to this day in my head, I said, okay, if I say yes to whatever they tell me to do, I kind of said this earlier, then maybe I could go to the top with them, right? So I literally in my head was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. And the reason why that's important is because I kept that with me all that time. And I said that in my head and I committed to that because I knew they were going to ask me to do things that was going to be out of my comfort zone. I knew that I was going to have to do difficult things. It wasn't all going to be easy. But if I said yes and did what they did, then maybe I got a shot, right? Then I can be successful like they are. Why not? So that was doing the uncomfortable things, the hard things. The comfort zone is the great enemy of courage and confidence. Our safe bubble, that's where our courage and confidence goes to die, you guys. That's like the graveyard of our courage and confidence. That's not where we're supposed to stay in life when we want to be successful in this business, in anything. You have to step out of it. There's a reason they say all growth starts at the end of your comfort zone, right? So where is your comfort zone? Identify it. I want you guys to think about that and identify it, because if you don't, it's a little too easy to avoid it. It's a little too easy to just not worry about it and stay in your bubble, right? So identify where it is. Once you know that, then you kind of have to start thinking about what you can do to step out of it, right? You're not in the dark. You're not naive anymore. Now you know. So what are you going to do about it? If you're a little like pulling back and like hesitating to step forward to something that you know you should do, it's probably something that's out of your comfort zone that you're not wanting to do, that you need to do to grow your business. So it's a choice. Again, a choice. It's your choice. And mindset's important with that, because you don't want to stick in this spot where you're thinking in your head, oh, I'm just going to be terrible at that. And oh, I can't do that. If you keep telling yourself that every single day, well, guess what? You probably can't, but you can. If you stop thinking and resonating on that. Tell yourself you can do the hard things, because you absolutely can. Taking that step doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden come to an epiphany and you are great at it and you're ready. So don't wait for that moment. You're not going to feel completely ready, perfect timing. Now I have this skill set. I'm absolutely ready to go. You probably waited way too long if you're waiting for that moment. So I'm giving you permission to not be good at something when you step out of your comfort zone. Actually, you shouldn't probably be fantastic at it if you're just doing it for the first time, right? My first team call I did, I remember being terrified. I also had watched it back since then, because I remember it, it's like fuzzy, right? It's a long time ago, but years later I watch it back and I'm like, it's very comical. I don't think I smiled once. I was very monotone. It was probably painfully boring to watch. Like I couldn't even get through the whole thing. So it's okay if you're not great at it, but guess what? It improved, right? I did better over the years, and my impact has become greater because I have been willing to step out of my comfort zone. I've been able to help more people, help lead the way, help be an example, help reach more people in my downline, right? So the impact is greater when you do things like that. Also, Andrea kind of touched on this too, but every diamond, you see the good, you see where they're at now. You don't necessarily see the struggles behind the scene. You don't necessarily see what they've done to maybe even gotten good at a skill, right? Maybe they weren't good at it before. Every diamond is not naturally good at everything. It's just not a thing, right? We're not like these people that just, oh yeah, they had it all figured out and that's why they are where they're at. No, there's lots of things that are struggles and you have to learn through and grow through despite the shortcomings, despite the trials and the failures and the hard things, right? And then I also want to mention too, because it's often mentioned to work in your comfort zone, right? Like you work in your strength zone, all that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That's a great thing, right? I can't refute that. But I do want to challenge you to think you can't fully discern how to work in your strengths until you have been way out of your comfort zone, working in what you may think are your weaknesses. So how do you know where your strengths are if you haven't given it a shot for you to grow in areas that you are uncomfortable in? So being out of my comfort zone, particularly in what I would have told you hands down are my weaknesses, is where I have actually found my strengths and things that I love doing now. One example of that is coaching calls. When I was first asked to start doing coaching calls with my downline, I was terrified. I did not want to do it. I didn't think I'd be good at it. Part of that reason was because I thought I had to know all the answers, and I was scared because I knew I didn't know all the answers, and I would be on a live call and have to act in the moment, figure it out. And it was probably one of the hardest things that I did not want to start doing because of my lack of belief in myself, honestly, at the end of the day, and my leadership. It is now something I absolutely love. I consider one of my strengths. I know it has helped grow not only myself, but my team and help grow leaders. And so that is something that I could have just said, oh, no, that's not my strength. Somebody else go do that. I'll stay in my little happy bubble, right? And what I think are my strength zone, right? So challenge yourself to not just stay in that little spot. Okay, so my challenge for that tip is to identify your comfort zone. And once you do that, identify one thing you can do to step out of it and do it in the next 48 hours. You can do it. So what could that be? It could be a million things, right? But maybe it's doing your first video. I was going to mention this earlier and I forgot, but I did the first video that we were challenged to do. It was like this diamond and training course that we were doing, and Fallon was heading it up with a handful of us, and she wanted us to do a video of ourselves dressed up like business attire, and all we literally had to do was say, hello, my name is Jaime Haskin and I am a network marketing professional, and I had to put it on YouTube, and it could be unlisted. Do you think I still freaked out? Yes, it sounds stupid right now, but that was hard for me. That was the first video I ever made. I thought it was such a big deal. So anyway, whatever it is to step out of your comfort zone, the idea is it's putting you in action to start to do it. And it's a ripple effect to keep doing it and to grow your confidence and to keep going further, right? You get the ball rolling. All right. Tip number 3 that I wanted to mention is about your goals, and especially looking into this new year. I just want to talk about this. I talked about it recently with my team for a team call. So if you want to hear more on this specific part I'm about to say, it's on my YouTube channel, and I go in more depth. But goals and lining it up in specifically with what you want, your goals, and your activity. Because, a lot of the times I think things can become very fuzzy, maybe incomplete. Maybe your goals are way off base from your activity. Things are misaligned. So if you look up misaligned goals, that's where it is on my YouTube actually. But they can be misaligned. And when that happens, there can be a lot of problems, right? So for example, Maybe you say you know what you want, but you're just going through the motions and you're not setting goals or activity goals, right? You're not setting things up for where you want to go. You know where you want to go, but you're not really being specific beyond that. Or maybe you start doing the actions, you start doing things, but you never actually set goals for yourself. Or maybe you do set goals, but the activity that you are doing is not moving the needle and you're not accomplishing the goals. And why could that be? I mean, maybe there's fear of failure. Maybe you don't want to get out of your comfort zone. Lots of different reasons. But if we're wishy-washy and those things are not aligned, then it only causes frustration for yourself and for the people you're helping, right? So if you're trying to coach someone and you're trying to help a level 1 hit their goals, but things are not happening for one reason or another, something is not lined up right, you're not asking the questions, you're not figuring some of these things out, then you're frustrated because they say they want to hit a goal, but they're not really getting there, or their feet are not matching their mouth, right? Or maybe that's something with yourself a little bit. So identify what you want and where you're going, what goals, and then what goals are going to get you there, right? So like weekly goals, monthly goals, and then you're setting activity to match those goals, to get the needle moving forward to actually hit those goals. So when you do this, some good questions to ask yourself, or when you're helping coach your team to do this, and you're setting a monthly goal, for example, and you want to develop a couple silvers this month, say, but maybe you just started and you've never developed a silver yet, which is fine. Or maybe you've been around the block a time or two here and it's been 6 months since you developed a silver. It's been, or longer, whatever, it's been a while. So what are you going to do differently this month to develop a silver when you haven't in the past, right? How is your action steps going to change? Or what do you need to learn? So that would be like one example to kind of dive in a little bit more. Another one, maybe you've been consistent, but you're not reaching your goals the last few months. Do you need to increase your activity? Or maybe you need to be consistent in the right things. Or maybe it's an opposite example. Maybe you're doing really big activity, but you're being very inconsistent in that big activity. You know, you kind of take off the pedal for like a couple of weeks, and then also you go really, really hard at the end of the month, and you're inconsistent in your big activity, which is causing some problems with reaching your goals. Maybe you're doing the activity, but you're not setting goals because you don't want to fail. And so you failed before at a goal, and now you're afraid to set that in stone for another month, or you didn't hit the rank that you wanted to hit, or whatever it is. And that's just plain or simple. You have to do it anyway. You have to set the goals anyway, because you don't succeed in this business or in life without failure. It is just a part of the process. None of us get a pass at missing that, right? We're all going to have those type of things come up. So set those goals anyway, get crystal clear on what you want in your goals and your activities and lining that up. If not, why is that important? If not, distractions are going to win. And this is kind of like the deep down in why this is important, because if you say you want this and you're kind of like not lining this up very clearly for yourself, or your people are not doing it, then those distractions are going to win. It said 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts per day. That's over 42 thoughts per minute. There's a lot of things demanding your attention, right? A lot, you're being pulled in a million different directions, a lot of things that can demand your attention. So it's your choice, though, on what you do or what you decide to give your attention. You get to fill your calendar. You get to decide your priorities, both your home priorities and your business priorities, because there needs to be both. It's not one or the other. It's not my business is taking over my home priorities. You need both, right? And it's not, if I have home, I can't have my business priorities. That's not true. You can have both. So decide what they are and you fill that calendar. And then what screams the loudest at you is not necessarily always the most important thing, right? So if you identify these things ahead of time, you identify your priorities, you have this lined up, then when these things clamor for your attention, or what seems to be screaming at you the loudest, you don't necessarily go to, because you have your priorities lined up, right? You don't let the most important things drop because of something that might just come up. So when we identify these things and we set our priorities, we identify our goals, then we can organize the expenditure of energy toward the things that move the needle forward. That's something that Dr. Henry Cloud said. Basically, it's our map, right? It's our guideline. It can tell us what to spend our energy on, what to spend our time on, because we have decided ahead of time. It minimizes that background noise. So when you line it up, you're going to identify your dreams and vision. That's like what we talked about earlier. That's what we want, right? The vision for yourself and for your team. And you might need to help others dream big for that, right? That's what we just talked about. You're identifying your goals and, have that big vision goal, have the smaller bite-sized goals, the monthly, the rank ups, the convention contest, for goodness sakes, think big for the convention contest. I can't tell you how many times I've done it. I've seen people do it where you don't think you sell yourself short on a goal that you can achieve for this convention contest. And then you get to the end of the contest and you're this much away from hitting that. And you could have hit it if you would have thought a little bit bigger from the very get-go. So don't only get every prize like the boots this month, but go for it ×2, because that's how you can get more points. Get the most points that you can squeeze out of yourself every single month. So go help someone rank up, get 6 joins, whatever it takes. So work hard and don't sell yourself short on that. What else here? So, another thing, you can't always control the pace, but that doesn't mean you set the goals, or you don't set the goals, excuse me. So you set the goals and it's just a continual process of reassessing. You reach your goals and you set new ones, or maybe you don't, and you adjust the timeline and you learn and you grow through it. But the vision is not changing. You can just readjust the timeline, right? Identifying the activities then with your goals, which specific activities are going to help move that needle. What do you need to do on a daily basis to help you reach your goal? If you could have a goal that's, just moving you forward a little bit or a lot of it, right? But if it's a lot, then you better be doing more activities than more action steps in your day-to-day activity than you were doing before. If it's a bigger goal, right? You need to adjust that and it needs to line up, and helping your people do the same is going to help you guys be on the same page, right? That way you're not trying to push them forward with a big goal, but they're not willing to do that activity, right? But you need to have the conversations, ask the questions, and just get one-on-one with them to figure that out together and breathe belief in them. So if they set a goal and you think they're capable of so much more, please tell them what they're capable of, and then help them do that, because that goes a long way, right? They have to be willing, then get their buy-in. Does that sound good to you? Ask the question, get their buy-in, but certainly tell them what you believe they are capable of. Where else here? Okay. Sorry. Lost my section of my notes. I'm just kind of going off here. All right. So do the things on purpose. When you identify your activities, you can evaluate yourself in 2 ways. And I want to bring this up because I think it's important, especially not only self-evaluate first, but then with your team, right? So when you're identifying activities, you can look at it in terms of intentions and actions. So when you look up the definition of intentions, it says the intentions are a wish or idea that someone means to carry out. Whereas an action is defined as something that is done, completed, or performed. So if you look at the activities that you have set up for yourself to hit your goals, this is your action steps that you're going to do. They are your intentions at that point, right? This is something you mean to carry out, but they do not become an action until you've actually done them. So how would you evaluate yourself on that? If you look back on last month or maybe the past 3 months and you look at, okay, yep, this was my daily plan of activity, my income producing activity that I was going to do each day. Here's my goal. How often did that plan turn into action, or where did it stay as an intention? Right? Because that matters. That's important. And if it just stays an intention, then why didn't it not turn to an action? What do you have to fix there or shift or recommit to yourself to do? And then be consistent in that. So some things and actions that I've seen my team recently become really consistent with, or they have been for a while, are the welcome calls. Like I've said before, we do that with people coming in, new people with your upline sponsor and the person above. And we will do that, like I said, with people who join for the products, people who join for the business. It's a great way to cast vision and kind of see where people are at. Coaching calls are a thing we were really intentional with. If you talk regularly to your people on the phone and get really intentional, you might not need to officially set them up. But I found personally, and with a lot of people on my team, we set them up weekly so that we can get very intentional with how we're moving forward. And I have a leader who's being really intentional with tap rooting right now and doing that with some level 2s and 3s to help raise up leaders even deeper down to connect with them. And then lastly, and focusing on the 4 areas to help them grow in those coaching calls. The four pillars are a good thing to look at what areas you can grow in, right? So recruiting, retention, duplication, leadership. It's always a good way to look at in terms of how to coach someone and where to grow in. And then in-person events have been something that a lot of our team have been really good about trying to be intentional in doing. With COVID, of course, it just seems like that got put off for a little while. And I know back when we were growing our business, my business, we were doing those a lot. And sometimes you had no people show up and sometimes you had a great turnout, but the act of getting in person encompasses the vision and belief. It encompasses maybe doing something out of your comfort zone if it is uncomfortable for you. And it's the act of doing something to help you grow your business, doing something just a little bit more than your day-to-day routine, right? So taking action, taking responsibility, doing one step more for your business. So duplicate everything down to your team, right? Help your people visualize what they want, help them set their goals and identify their activity. And I do that getting on the phone, like those coaching calls. And then you can ask questions. So I have a list of questions for you that you can ask. And I want to say, as always, first ask to yourself, talk to your upline. Second, use it to ask to your team. But one can be, are you working on purpose? Number 2, do you know what you want and where you want to go? That's like the vision, that's the belief, that's the big goals, that's the, all of that. Number 3, knowing what you want, are you setting goals along the way that put you on that path? So are they actually setting goals? Number 4, while working towards your goals, have the activities that you've done move the needle forward toward accomplishing your goals? Are they setting action steps? What's their daily activity look like? Is it helping them accomplish their goals? Is it moving that needle forward? Does it line up, right? Does it make sense? And then number 5, how would you rate your activities over the past month, 3 months, 6 months on the intention versus the action? So how would they rate themselves? Scale of 1 to 5, say, on intention versus action the last few months or the last month on their activities. And then number 6, what can you do to improve in these areas? What can you line up better? And of course, we all have areas to grow in, right? So don't be afraid to look at these areas so you actually can grow. We have to ask the question so you can be intentional and move forward, right? It's the best way to help yourself. It's the best way to help your team when you're coaching them, to ask the questions. Sometimes we want to avoid them because you don't want to hurt feelings or you don't want to call someone out. But when you're doing it in a loving way, when you're asking the questions, they can kind of come to their own answers. You can kind of pull it out a little bit, and that's going to be how you can best help them grow their business, not by just being a cheerleader and saying all the nice things, right? So dive into things and see what's working, see what needs to be improved, what needs to line up a little bit better, right? Or do they have more intentions versus actions? Do we need to fix anything or button anything up? And then last quote by Dr. Henry Cloud, he also said, focus comes from knowing where I want to go, removing the misaligned goals, defining the activities that drive the needle, pruning the rest of them, and having a lot of accountability along the way. So your challenge with that 3rd tip is to line up those 3 areas for yourself and ask yourself those questions, and then do the same with your working level 1s. So you got vision and belief, you got the comfort zone, and then you got lining up your goals and actions. And that's what I got for you.
I love it. Jamie, I love that you kept quoting Dr. Cloud, because we had like a 2-hour live with him a Star Diamond call. And then he's been what do we have? It's like 2 or 3 hours worth of a leadership university that we're getting to work through. So I love that you just keep quoting him, because it's like in my head all the time, because I feel like we're just listening to him. And that's what's interesting, is whatever you're putting in is whatever is like coming out, right? Like if you're constantly listening to personal development, it's going to come out when you're having conversations. It's just natural. Okay, so does anyone ready to ask their question to Jamie while she's here? I'm so excited. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself because I'll tend to talk, and I'm going to let y'all unmute and ask your question.
Okay. So you remind me a lot of me and also a level one that I have. And my question is, she started out really great. And it's been the biggest change I saw in her was really the stepping outside of her comfort zone. Like, and she'll tell you now, like, how much that just grew her as a person, as a mom. Becky always calls it eternal work. And I definitely saw that in her. But she kind of got scared and she stepped down. And now I'm trying to really pour belief back into her, like, hey, you know what you're doing. Like, what do you do, like, when you have like a leader who's doing all the things and then kind of just gets scared, or life happens, and like, how do you encourage them to get back in it?
Mm-hmm. Good question. Have you asked her, like, hey, I've seen that you kind of pulled back a little bit. Like, have you kind of asked her, like, what's going on? How are you feeling? Or has she told you she's scared? What is she scared of? What kind of questions have you
It's
got?
a lot of life stuff. She's a young mom, so she's still kind of figuring out being a mom, she wants to be all the things all the time. And so she's trying to balance that. And in balancing that, Plexus kind of went down on the priority list. And she's kind of, so she's in and out, but she's not as in as she was. And she says she's going to come back, and she wants to come back and all those things, but she's trying to figure these things first.
Okay. So she's probably not scared of, like, the actions that she's doing in Plexus. It sounds like she's more scared of, like, the act of being able to balance both of them, or being enough for both areas, or something like that. So I'd probably try and connect with her on her priorities and what she needs to do, both for her home and for the business end. But start with her home, and what are her non-negotiables, what for both that and the business. And she might just need to start time blocking. I don't know how she arranges her schedule or doing things, but if you can help her identify those things in both, probably recast some vision and belief for the business with her, and have that confidence for her. But then in order to do that, we need to get things figured out with how to make this work into your day to day, right? So talking to her about what that looks like to grow her business, to also, be enough for both, and just kind of maybe telling her too, you can do both. Sometimes we need that reassurance that you're not failing at one when you're doing the other, vice versa. I oftentimes had to balance things with my kids by asking that, telling them I was going to put my phone away and have time with them, but then, okay, now I need a half an hour and I can't be interrupted and I'm doing this. So having those, like, blocks where they know, and maybe even celebrating with them when you do hit goals, if she's going for a goal for the month, and take the family out for dinner afterwards, so that you kind of bring them in with her vision and with what she wants to do and things like that. So it probably gets a lot more deeper with her than a lot of that we can cover right now, but those are some of the things that I would start with.
Jamie, I was curious, are you constantly developing silvers? And if so, kind of what does that, what I would guess is that the exact same conversation you've had through this whole thing is with the conversation you're having with every single leader. Knowing that you signed up just for the products in the beginning and really maybe didn't want the business, do you still have that conversation with every person, even though they're like, I don't want the business, I don't want to sell anything, I just want to buy my products? Do you still have those business conversations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get that information from them by bringing it up for first and foremost. And then if they are standoffish, of course, with the whole business, I think that's where you can, of course, still use the referral link. You can drip that, right? Have multiple exposures of what they could do with that over time. So I like to talk about it before I sign them up. So they know, at some point, or while I'm on the phone talking to them, signing them up, whatever. But then if they don't want that, they still have a referral link, right? That's when I talk the smaller things, like, hey, your cousin, your friend, accountability partner, like, you have this referral link, like, who do you know that need some more energy too, or they get their first win and their victory, then I'm like, oh, you probably have people in your life that need this too. Who, has anybody asked you about it? Have you told anybody like that you're feeling this great? And then it's like their mom and their cousin conversation. So if it's depending on like, you just kind of feel that and build that relationship still. And over time, there's definitely some people, lots of diamonds that you could pull, that most of them started for the products and not the business. And I've heard many and have some of my team too that insisted, like, don't you dare try and get me to sell this thing. Like, I won't do it. And now they're full on running with the business, so that certainly will happen. But if you build that relationship, sometimes if you have a really good relationship, you could kind of joke around about it and say, like, when are you gonna do this with me? We had so much fun in Hawaii together. Come on, and you can kind of joke about it. So as you build that, you can kind of work around that a little bit. Or even asking to see if they could do a messenger event, if you could do one for them. If you got a good relationship, hey, this would really help me out. I'd love to do a messenger event for you and, get any referrals from you. And I'd be able to help some of your friends. And, it's super simple for you and I would do all the work. So that's a great way you can plug into some of those people who don't want to do the business right away as well.
Jaime, I know that we haven't met personally, and I also don't know Fallon personally, but one thing I know is that I can just tell Fallon is a black and white, like, confident, we're going to do this personality. And you sound a little bit more like me, especially with like the social work background of just, not as straight up out there. So I'm curious, because it sounds like it was a joint effort between Fallon and Tiffany, who I know Tiffany is very different than Fallon too. Talk to me about how you get people to, let's say, go gold, because we know that's really where things start to get into momentum. But how do you help people with various personalities go gold? And especially, like, what action items are you calling them to when they join and they tell you that they want the business?
Yes. So it kind of depends on how they're starting. So if they are very hesitant, but they just want a little extra cash kind of thing, then, it might just be, okay, let's get your first post up. Like, you give them one step at a time and link arms with them, right? So get that first post up. Okay, list of 20 people or 5 people that come to mind for the products of their business, right? And then you help them reach out to them, maybe do an event. So more hand holding one step at a time. But if they're saying they want it, if they're saying they're wanting the business and they want to hit rank ups, maybe they want to go diamond, in my mind, that means I need to help them with the action steps that are going to help them be most, successful, right? So that looks like daily activity with, iPay. We're doing social media posts 5 days a week. We do that, say at least do 5 days a week, and you're doing social media every day. You're doing 2 new reach outs and at least 1 follow-up. And that would be like a bare minimum consistency that will build over time. Now, you want to hit big goals this month, like, go do 50 reach outs, go do all the things kind of stuff, but helping them step forward into that. We have team calls weekly. We have a book club weekly. So really encouraging them to get on that and get into the community right away. But I really do love getting on the phone right away with them, whether that's myself, whether that's these 3-way calls. That has been, I think, the most helpful to be able to figure out where they're at, because sometimes someone says, has hesitancy and doesn't necessarily say they don't really want it, but we find out on a call that, yeah, they could really benefit from a lot of extra money. And they really do want it, so we find out completely opposite things on these calls sometimes. And how I do that is I will share, if I'm on a call with a level 2, I will start off by asking, my level 1 will introduce us, and I will ask my level 2, tell me a little bit more about yourself first, like what brought you to Plexus, tell me a little bit about you, what are you excited about? And then they'll share maybe who they are a little bit. If they came in for the products, maybe they'll share some, hesitancies with stuff, even with the business, maybe some hesitancies. And then I will share my story after that. And I can kind of mold that to addressing some of the things that they said, or I can find some common ground with them and relate to them. And then at the end, I always ask or say the same thing in terms of, I would, because my story is really heavy business side, honestly, because I wasn't really looking for results, right? So I do share my whole business testimony. And I say at the end of that, I I always like to tell people both, like my full story, both sides of Plexus. A lot of people, you join for the products, but you might not know that there's this business opportunity too. And a lot of people need both. They could really benefit from some extra cash or a full stream of income. So I always want them to know what Plexus has to offer, that there's two sides here. And then I ask them a question, like, is that something that, some extra cash could benefit you, or maybe a full stream of income? Like, would that be life-changing for your family? And kind of gauge them and see where they're at. And that's how we're able to maybe cast a little bit bigger vision too, or gauge their level of interest to baby step them or really start feeding them stuff. And if they're hungry and they're constantly like reciprocating back and forth and messages and stuff like that, then I know I can feed them more information, right? Versus if they're, barely communicating with me and I'm just kind of dragging them, then I might have to handhold them and take it a little easier. But I don't even know if that answered your question very well, but.
Hi, first off, thank you. I have a question about when you organize your energy towards when you're trying to build business leaders or even just build a team. Would you think that your first priority would be the videos for self, leadership, getting yourself prepared, or just go ahead and feeding into being your authentic self with your team and the people that you have and helping that way? I mean, for me, I just kind of get scattered as to what's most important. And I feel like I dilute every side of it by doing that. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So clarify with me, you mean like making your own videos for
well, no,
like
just like feeding into myself as far as like so I kind of like am getting back into I'm like restarting. So as far as organizing my energy, do I go ahead and just first start off with, okay, Darlene, just feed into yourself for right now, get yourself self-aware, get yourself prepared to be a better leader? Or do I just kind of maybe do a little bit of that and a little bit of that? So that's my question. I don't want to dilute one side or the other. I want to do it the right way. So in your opinion, when you organize the energy into feeding either yourself, team, or both, what would you think would be the most important?
Good question. I believe it's definitely a balance. Certainly talk to your upline about that too, how they would direct you, but if you put too much in only wanting to develop yourself and only focus on the personal growth, then building your business is going to be put on hold. Versus you're building your business and you're not doing the personal growth, you might be stuck in your business longer, right? So it has to be the balance. Fallon has a really great story. She was stuck for 2 years at Senior Gold and she went backwards and she was not moving, but she would say what she needed to do to really change was personal growth. That was the game changer for her. Lori, Welsh Bradford now at the time, she said, she's like, listen, I can't help you anymore, Fallon, go read some books, is literally what she told her, because she was just like, she's like, go read some books. And Fallon did. She got the list, she started reading them, but she will tell you she never stopped doing the activity. So the activity had to continue happening and she had to work on herself. And then eventually it kind of married together. And when she started exploding, went all the way to diamond after those couple years. And she went on her first Emerald extravaganza with 3, oh my goodness, I hope I don't get this wrong, 3 or 4 other jewels with her. So, and I was on that trip. That was my first trip. And that was hers as well as a diamond. So she went in big momentum. So marrying that together, even though it seems, if it seems overwhelming, maybe time block, your activity and spend, whatever time that you're doing on your reach outs, on your personal IPA, time blocking your time with your team that you're connecting with them, and time blocking your personal growth. So a video, reading a book, even if it's, a certain amount of pages or a chapter a day, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. So I would balance that so you're not feeling scattered, and list that like on a to-do list or something so you can focus in on what you're doing when you're doing it.
I think one of my favorite things is that Fallon was continuously plugging into Lori. Like she was continuously going back to Lori and saying, okay, but what can I do now? Like I'm still stuck. It's still not working. I'm doing all the things. Like, what else am I missing? And I can just picture Lori going, go read a book. Like I can only tell you to go reach out to people and how to develop and how to help them go silver. And honestly, y'all can only come to these calls so much before, if you're not taking the stuff out of it. And Becky and Ellen and I talk about this every week after these calls. If you are a consumer on this call, and the second you get off this call, you go, oh, that was a really great call. And you close your notebook and you literally leave it there until next Monday's call, and you never implement any of the things that you've starred, the little notes you made to yourself, the I must do's, all of those things in the 4 pages of notes I just took. If you aren't implementing those, then you have just honestly wasted an hour of your own time, because you're not actually doing anything. So I think what Jamie's like saying, and what Fallon would say, and what Lori would say, and what Kristen would say, and what Amber would say, what everybody would say, and that's whole entire amazing upline, I know Tiffany would say it, is you've got to implement everything you're learning. So like when you go listen to personal development, what messages do you need to be sending? What training call do you need to be scheduling? What coaching call do you need to be getting on? What do you need to be asking your upline? And then what do you need to be evaluating with your downline? Like all of those things should be happening while you're doing personal development. And my favorite thing is that Jamie discussed evaluation. You should always be saying what went well, what didn't go as well, how can I do it better next time? And then go ahead and schedule the next time. Like you should already have your next, messenger event, your next Facebook event, or, the next opportunity call we're all doing. And you should already have that on the calendar, so you can go, okay, how did I not get any guests on that call? What did I not do well? What do I need to do better? Okay, I'm going to start doing that now for the next call. So it's putting all of the things you're learning into action. If something from Jamie's call today makes you like put action on it today, put skin on it today. If it's goal setting, if it's saying, oh, I keep saying I want to go diamond, but I'm not even doing what it takes to go ruby right now. Maybe what I need to do is figure out what does it actually take to go ruby, put those goals on a sheet of paper, put action items next to them, and then decide, do I actually want to do those actions? If I do, because I actually want to go ruby, then I'm going to start completing those actions in a row. And part of that action is personal development. Part of that action is showing up, but it's also having a guest on there. And Jamie's team, upline and downline, I was just looking, 5-star achievers is Fallon. That means she has 5 jewel legs holding, jewel and above, wide. Lori's on there, I know, because I talk to her all the time. Brittany, who I think is Jamie's sideline, is on there. Like there's so many people in this one team. And the one thing I can say about this entire team, as far up as I can think about people, is personal development. There's so much personal development in this entire team. It is like probably the common thread, other than Jesus. Personal development is probably the common thread that weaves its way through this entire team of success. And so, but I would say it's personal development with action attached to it. Like you have to have that action item attached. So Jamie, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I get to spend time with Jamie in Phoenix in a couple of weeks.
I can't wait.
Yeah, with Dr. Cloud. And so that's fun. And then all of y'all will have the chance to come by and thank Jamie just for, if you see her in Nashville, and just say thank you so much for the call. I think that is always so fun to us when we feel like a call that we've done has actually impacted your business or your life or your mindset. And I'm excited to see what y'all do with the goals that you set up and the actions. And Jamie, just thank you so much for taking an hour out of your Monday. Stay warm, and we really do appreciate it. So y'all all have a good rest of your day. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.